Today we're going to talk about overcoming your fear. How do we do this? Well, there's a lot of different ways. You know, everybody that comes to Rythmia has an intention or a goal. And those are things that we can also teach you how to set for your week. But a lot of people have a history of trauma, or they're making a big life decision right now, and there's things that are challenging for people, in their life, and so they want to get some clarity. And they've heard, that ayahuasca, plant medicine is something that can kind of help them get some clarity. They've learned that, what they've tried in the past, whether it was therapy or different inpatient stuff, there's all these different things that people try to sort of get some clarity, right? And they've usually become frustrated with the system that the Western medical model presents. Now, the Western model has a lot of really good things to it. I was trained in that model for many years in grad school, and there's a lot of good to that. But there's also a lot of sort of empty gaps in that model. And what we're trying to do is get the person to be empowered to make a change for themselves. Because I was considered a so-called expert in trauma, in addiction, in acute psychiatric. But the bottom line was I had to provide a safe environment for people to do their own work. And those that had the tools could do the work. Those that didn't have the tools would struggle more. And so what we want to do at Rythmia is give you guys the tools. Now, there's a lot of fear surrounding trauma work. And the reason is because people are afraid they have to relive trauma. And that's not the case necessarily. Some people, have never ever looked at their past, and they've done no work because they're really afraid of it. And I understand that. It makes sense because it was very upsetting what happened when you were a kid. But in order to work through something, you have to go to the space that allows you to allow these emotions to surface and let them come to what I call the amygdala prefrontal cortex connection that allows these emotions to be released and get out of you. And so that is very, very, very important for your trauma therapy. Now, the fear surrounding plant medicine is often like, oh, I'm going to be sick. I'm going to be nauseous. I have to go to the bathroom a lot. Let me tell you, okay, I've been doing plant medicine for a long time, and I've been doing it recently once a week to kind of connect with the guests and connect with myself. And what I've noticed is you can still get up and move around. You still have your faculties about you. You can still connect with yourself, and you can go use the restroom or you can go outside. There's still a connection you have with reality. And so what you're dealing with is your subconscious, and you have to let the subconscious open up and the amygdala open up and flow. And that's where the fear comes, because we don't want to look at our ego all the time. We're afraid of our ego because our ego is there to protect us, but our ego is no longer needed in certain ways. We have to reorganize the ego and change our ego. We have to make it more unified to our authentic self and what we're trying to realize in life with our goals and our expectations for who we are as people. So a lot of times people have some fear surrounding that, and they're a bit overwhelmed. People also don't really believe that they are an amazing individual and they are perfect in the universal sort of scope of things, and that we all have imperfections that we're working through physically, sort of materialistic wise, but our spiritual and emotional self is perfect. And that is trying to come through and connect with our physical self. So what I like to explain it is that plant medicine, when you take it into your body, it's connecting your physical self with your spiritual or emotional self. They're becoming one. And that's where we have these clarity moments, and some people have visual stuff, and some people just have a lot of insight come intellectually. And that's because you're vibrating at the same frequency as your emotional, spiritual self. So it's beautiful. So you don't need to be afraid of this, okay? It's getting you back to your origin. It's getting you back to your roots and who you really are as a person. Now, the reason why in indigenous cultures, there is not a lot of mental illness or depression and anxieties, because first of all, they probably define those things differently. Second of all is because they're very, very, very connected to the earth and connected to nature. In a Western culture, we're not as connected to nature. I grew up in Los Angeles. I was connected to nature about as much as I was connected to outer space. It's like there was concrete everywhere and asphalt and fast food and violence and just craziness, right? So nature wasn't something that was really there. It's like you had to go on a vacation to get to nature. It wasn't all around you, right? But the indigenous cultures are connected to nature because they live in nature. They thrive together. They're a symbiotic sort of relationship that they have with nature. And that's where this wisdom comes from. It's ancient wisdom that's connecting with us again and bringing us back to our roots. And a lot of people are sick of all this crazy stuff happening in the world, whether it's governments or pharmaceutical industries or ways to think, or you have to buy the latest product or whatever. You know, we all have fun with stuff and we like to have comforts of different things, that technology, of course, right? But the bottom line is, if you're not really plugged into yourself and connected to yourself, it's hard to enjoy the things that technology brings. You can't really enjoy and have the benefits of these things unless you're really connected to yourself. And the more you're connected to yourself, the less you'll probably need that stuff, but it's still sort of fun and interesting to have. But you have to just really be connected to who you are as an individual. This is how the world shifts. Self-connection brings empathy for others and connection with other people. So overcome the fear that you have about plant medicine. Overcome the fear that you have to look at your ego. Overcome the fear that the trauma work you got to do is going to devastate you, because it's not. You're going to be able to handle it. Your body has no reason to hold on to irrelevant historical trends of fear and pain. It wants to get rid of that. It's not beneficial for your survival. Let's get past it. Come down to Rythmia. Check us out. Look at this number right here. Here it is right there. Book now. I look forward to meeting you. Thanks for watching. See you guys next week. Pura vida.